Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Bitcoin quarterly candles as we have just concluded quarter three just a few days ago. So I will be looking at the previous bear markets and I'll be talking about my longer term takeaways and outlook for Bitcoin into the next few quarters. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, feel free to check out our sponsors. This channel is partnered with FTX.us. You can check them out in the link in the description below. All right, so on my chart, I've got the quarterly candles for Bitcoin, as well as this red line here, which is going to be the 20 period average. So what I really do want to focus on is the fact that historically the 20 period average has been when the quarterly chart has bottomed. And this area has held as support going all the way back to the quarter one of 2020. This was on the March capitulation. If you recall, Bitcoin had that massive move down to $3,800, and that resulted in a retest of the 20 period average on the quarterly chart. So you can see that right there. And then there was another test right here back in the third quarter of 2015. And beyond that, the 20 period average didn't exactly exist because you need a minimum of 20 quarters or 5 years to actually have this moving average. So we can't really look to anything beyond that. But those were the only two other times in Bitcoin's history where we've actually had a test of the 20 period average on the quarterly chart. And you can see that the previous two quarters actually did test this moving average. And this quarter as well is definitely going to have some sort of interaction with this. So that is 3 consecutive quarters in a row where previously in Bitcoin's history, we've only had 2 quarters actually interacting with this. So to me, that is quite significant. And I think this quarter, the fourth quarter, is going to be very important for Bitcoin. And one of the things that I think is extremely important to watch out for is if we can start to bounce back and hold this moving average, as we really would be entering uncharted territory if we're unable to close above this. So at this point, you really can't say sufficiently that we have lost 20 period average, but you certainly don't see any bounces off support, and you certainly don't have a convincing rally, a convincing bounce like we had back in the third quarter of 2015, as well as the first quarter of 2020. So definitely watch out into the end of the year if Bitcoin starts to close back above this moving average. Currently, it is at around $19,875, so we're just about 1-2% off that level. So we definitely will be interacting with this throughout the rest of the quarter. And again, one of the things I'm really watching out for is if we can start to bounce from here and close above this, similar to how we did back in the previous 2 retests of 2015 as well as 2020. So now what I want to focus on is time, and specifically, I'm going to be covering the length of bars it took from the peak to the bear market bottom. So if we go back here to 2015, we can see that the bottom occurred in the first quarter, and the peak actually occurred in October of 2013, that fourth quarter. So if we just take the measure move here, that represented about 5 bars, 5 quarters from the peak to the bottom. And then if we're continuing on here to the 2018 bear market, we had that peak in the fourth quarter of 2017, and then took us down to a low in the fourth quarter of 2018, representing a 4-quarter distance from the peak to the low. So there's a few different ways that I think that we can measure this for the current cycle, for the current bear market. Now, one of the ways that I think is the most popular is by measuring from the peak that we had back in November of 2021, that fourth quarter where we did have the all-time high around $69,000. And if we were to do that, we can see that we've already completed since that time 3 full quarters, and to where we are now, that represents 4 bars, 4 quarters. So there is an argument to be made that potentially this is the quarter that we have where maybe we do form that bottom if we're just looking at it specifically from a time-based perspective, which is somewhat of a limited view. And I understand that this might be overly simplified, but one of the things that I think is very important to understand is that when we have such a complicated asset like Bitcoin, zooming out to understand the bigger picture trend can be very beneficial. And if we just look to these quarterly candles, it really does a great job at drowning out all the noise, drowning out all the intraday volatility, and just giving a great idea and visualization of the bigger picture trend. So again, that trend has been for the past 2 bear markets between 5 and 4 quarters from the peak to the bottom. And if we were to measure from the 2021 November peak, that represents 3 completed quarters, and we would have some sort of bottom towards the end of this quarter or potentially the next quarter, marking about 4 to 5 bars. Another way, though, that we can measure this is from the April 2021 peak. And I think this is a very valid measure because what happened back in April 2021 was very different from what happened in November of 2021. If you recall back to that peak in April, the sentiment and the technical indicators were far different. There was a lot more hype surrounding Bitcoin and the overall crypto ecosystem. There were indicators like the RSI signaling an extreme level of overboughtness. We had a lot of indicators on chain suggesting that was the peak, where all of this activity into the end of 2021 was really within a bear market sentiment wise. So if we were to measure from the second quarter of 2021, you can see that to where we are today, that represents about 6 bars or 5 completed quarters right now. Now, that would suggest that potentially we do have a longer term bottom in place, and this is one of the measurements in confluence with the 20 period average that could suggest that we might have a bottom in place. Now, that's not to say that this is the correct way to measure it. You could obviously leave that up for interpretation, but what I want to do in this video is just give you guys both takes. I think both are perfectly valid, perfectly reasonable, and I don't want to say one is more correct than the other. I just want to present both arguments for you guys to interpret and form your own conclusions. But my conclusion is that even if we do not have a longer term bottom in place, I do think that we are getting very close, and my longer term outlook is anywhere below 20K for Bitcoin will most likely be looked back upon as a phenomenal accumulation opportunity. So as always, I hope you guys enjoy the content and the analysis. By the way, make sure to check out our sponsors in the link in the description below. This channel is to partner with FTX.us. It's a great cryptocurrency exchange. Go check them out. And if you sign up with my link in the description below or through my referral code SNOWYCRYPTO, you can get a 5% discount on exchange fees. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.